Hey everyone, it's Greg and it's Unbreakable Spirits. And it is Saturday, July 22nd, a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania. Uh, Sunny, only about 84, no humidity at all. I mean, this is wonderful weather for July. It's just great. I'm going to try to get outside a little bit uh, in a while. Um, Today's program, I wanted to give a little tribute to the great Tony Bennett, who died yesterday. He was 96 years old, led a long, wonderful life. Um, so we kind of expected it. He had Alzheimer's disease, and he really fought, from what I understand. In fact, he just the other day, the family said he was sitting at his piano and he was singing "Because of You," which was one of his first hit records. Um, But there's a lot of tributes coming in, deservedly so, on the legend Tony Bennett. And I saw one this morning on Twitter from Paul McCartney, and a lot of the uh, our musical legends, Paul McCartney, Billy Joel, Elton John, uh, are paying tribute to Tony Bennett. They all did a duets album. Tony Bennett had a duets album out, two of them actually, one around 2006 and another around 2011, and they both did very well. But I, it's just such a marvelous life. This guy, that I mean, think about it. What a rich long life. Think about all the experiences he had and people he sang with. Uh, you know, Hearing his story is fascinating. How he started out. He was in a family. He wasn't even the best singer in his family. His brother was. In fact, his brother sang at the Metropolitan Opera. Um, Tony Bennett, but always wanted to sing. And one of his early jobs, while he was growing up and making his way in the world of music, was as a singing waiter. He was a singing waiter. Can you believe that? He'd come by and, would you like your pork chops? Da, 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 da. I recommend the stew. Da, 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 da. Anyway, it's fascinating. And Alexa, play us a little "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" by Tony Bennett. Yeah, let's listen to this.
Couldn't find us a little heart to San Francisco by Tony Bennett, but here is other music by Tony Bennett.
Isn't she something? Alexa, stop. Sometimes she's really evil. She just. Anyway, you know the song. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Nothing is ever easy. Anyway, uh, so Tony Bennett, here's how he got his start. He was singing. He's from New York, and he was singing at Greenwich Village. He was on the bill with Pearl Bailey. He was a famous artist back in the day. And Bob Hope just happened to be in the crowd. He caught his act, and he loved Tony Bennett so much, his singing, that he went backstage after the show, and he said, "You shouldn't be playing here. You should be playing the Paramount Theater in Manhattan, in the middle of Manhattan at Times Square." So what happened was Bob Hope got Tony Bennett to be his opening act. And this is remarkable. Tony Bennett was ready to go on stage before Bob Hope. And all of a sudden, Bob Hope says to him, I don't like your name. Tony Bennett was going under the name of Joe Barry, Bari, when he first started out. And Bob Hope says, your name's not going to cut it in show business. What's your real name? And Tony Bennett says, Anthony Benedetto. And Hope didn't like that either. He said, I'm not crazy about that either. And so Bob Hope went out on the stage, ready to introduce Tony Bennett, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, there's a brand new singer I want you to hear. And here he is, Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett's backstage and doesn't come out. And Bob Hope says, and here's Tony Bennett. Well, Tony Bennett finally got the idea that he's talking about me. So he goes on stage and does his thing. And so it was Bob Hope who gave him the name of Tony Bennett. And it stuck. It's just some fascinating things, you know. Of course, he found I Left My Heart in San Francisco, which Alexa won't play. That was actually the B-side of a record back in the early 60s. The A-side was a little ditty called Once Upon a Time. Da, 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 da. Beautiful song. But the DJ started playing the B-side, which was I Left My Heart in San Francisco. And it became really popular. Actually, that song, that record only got to number 24 on the charts. Can you believe that? But it was so popular, it won the Grammy Award that year, I believe 1962, for Record of the Year, Song of the Year. Amazing. And that became Tony Bennett's signature song, you know. What I loved about Tony Bennett, too, was he was just fun to watch. He never sang the same song twice the same way, you know, high note, low note. He just seemed so relaxed. He was having fun on stage, and that went back to the audience. We could see that. Yeah. Sadly, I never saw Tony Bennett in concert. I loved his singing, but I never saw him in concert. But I always admired him because Frank Sinatra said of Tony Bennett in the mid-60s, somebody asked Sinatra a question and said, who do you think is the best singer out there right now? And Sinatra said, for my money, it's Tony Bennett because he has a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, and he's got a great voice. So that was a high praise coming from Sinatra. So Tony Bennett crushed it in the 60s. And then he fell on hard times. I mean, he got a divorce in the 70s. His record company dropped him. He got into drugs. And the guy almost died in 78 or so from a cocaine overdose. Can you believe that? That was the time when Tony Bennett got his son, Danny, to become his agent. He said, enough of this. Tony Bennett quit cold turkey drugs, cold turkey, did not go to rehab. He just stopped. And his son said, you know, Dad, I know you want to get your music across to more people, more ages and stuff. He said, but, you know, you've got to go to them. So they came up with this plan that Tony Bennett aggressively went after the younger crowd, the MTV crowd, which you think about it, the 80s, that was just starting videos and it was starting, MTV was starting out. So this was pretty ingenious of the Bennetts. They took advantage of that. And Tony Bennett got on MTV and he was on a show. I don't know if you remember or not, MTV Unplugged. It was a great show. And a lot of these artists, Paul McCartney, Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, did their music toned down acoustically with maybe only a guitar, a piano, you know, not much of a backing band. And it was a great show. And Tony Bennett, that album, the show was recorded, won Album of the Year. So that brought Tony Bennett back into the limelight, and especially with a whole different crowd who got to know his music. And I forgot to tell you too, that did you know Tony Bennett was one of the first guests on the very first Johnny Carson Tonight Show? I didn't know that. Like I said, I'm reading all this stuff since he passed on yesterday, and that was amazing. There was a handful of guests on there for the first show, including Groucho Marx. But Tony Bennett, because he had the song out, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, Johnny Carson brought him on. And that was only the first time of many, many times he was on the Tonight Show with Carson. I have to say, this is interesting too, because Tony Bennett always said, I never worked a day in my life because I love what I'm doing. I love singing. I love entertaining. I love making people happy. And Duke Ellington gave him some good advice back in the 60s. He said, you have a passion for singing. You love singing. But if that singing ever, the passion ever subsides, go to something else in your life that you love. Take a break from singing and go back. And the other thing that Tony Bennett loved in his life, was painting. He was an excellent painter. I don't know whether you guys ever saw one of his paintings. Actually, 2 of his paintings are in the Smithsonian Institute. That's how good he was. So he would paint. That was his second love. When he missed singing, he'd go back to singing. When he missed painting, he'd go back to painting. He said, in that way, I never worked a day in my life because every day I was doing something that I love. So that was a great, great philosophy. For these 2 duet albums, as I said, he sang with just about everybody, who's who of singing, and all these other singers just were all of Tony Bennett. It's like he is the singer's singer, So so they were honored to be on this duet album with Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga, Barbara Streisand, you name it. The one thing that Tony Bennett insisted on was they had to come and be live in the studio with him, face to face. He said that way it makes the record more intimate and the listener can really feel it. That, because there's some duet albums where the 2 artists don't even see each other. The one records his or her part of the duet in a different city or a different studio or whatever, and then they put it together. But Tony Bennett, wisely so, I think, insisted that the artists come to him and they are in the same studio together. And you can hear that on the records. How much fun they're having singing with Stevie Wonder. It was just, it was amazing. So, Tony Bennett, God bless you, Tony. Thank you for giving the world so much joy, bringing so much sunshine into the world, with your brilliant voice, the way you interpreted songs, and he definitely leaves a legacy, And the one thing about passing of Tony Bennett, it's sort of the end of an era. Sinatra passed on, Bobby Darin, all these great crooners in the past, with the big bands. And Tony Bennett was certainly her, and there's not that many of those singers around anymore. I think of Johnny Mathis in the same vein. Beautiful voice, singer. I love Johnny Mathis, especially now. We see him every year when he comes around to the Lancaster, the American Music Theater. In fact, we have tickets to see Johnny Mathis next month there. And he's 88 now, and he still sings great. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic and amazing that his voice is so clear and strong, and he's just absolutely a treasure for 88, his age, to still be touring. He doesn't do many dates a year, but he always comes back to Lancaster, PA. And just an amazing singer. But my point is, Johnny Mathis is one of the few singers left of that era, which Tony Bennett was in. They used their voice almost like an instrument, you know. They had such control of their voice and just one of a kind, you know. We'll never see it or hear another Tony Bennett again. And I give him a lot of credit because even at the end, you remember he was doing those shows with Lady Gaga and those albums, and he still tried to keep up to date, you know, with Lady Gaga. And he's going to be missed. So that's my little tribute to Tony Bennett. So we'll be back on Monday, and we'll talk about whatever is in the news again, like usual. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather out there. Stay cool. We're lucky here in the Northeast. We're getting a couple of days break. I know you guys are really sizzling out there out west and in the south. And please stay cool. I can't wait till September. What can I say? There's Bud in the background. Bud and I sing So Long. It's my Katie's, my little dog's birthday tomorrow. She'll be 7 years old. Maybe we'll have some doggy cake. She'll have the doggy cake, the people cake. And we're going to celebrate Katie. So you guys have a great weekend. Celebrate something. Listen to some Tony Bennett this weekend, okay? Celebrate Tony Bennett. Don't mourn him. He lived a long life. Celebrate his life and his music and his legacy. And I will too, if I could get stupid Alexa to play the music. Take care for now. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.